Hey everybody, welcome to Talk Tuesday, a series dedicated to empowering youth and families. This series is brought to you by Steps Foundation Incorporated, where advocacy meets education for the betterment of young minds. Each month, we explore meaningful topics designed to inspire growth, spark creativity, and equip our listeners with the tools that they need to thrive. I'm Maya Tasker, your host and peer educator at Steps Foundation Incorporated. This month, we're focusing on a topic that's crucial for academic success: exam prep strategies. With exams approaching, it's essential to equip ourselves with effective techniques to study effectively, efficiently, and manage stress and perform our best. Preparing for exams isn't just about hitting the books, it's about developing habits that support your confidence, your focus, and your well being. This month, we're exploring how thoughtful planning, smart study strategies, and a calm mindset will help you approach tests with clarity and control. Whether you're aiming to boost your grades, reduce stress, or even just feel more prepared, these tools aren't just for school, they're life skills. They'll carry you far beyond the classroom, too. So let's unlock your potential together. Over to you, Ilani.
Hi everyone. So my first question is, how can students figure out their learning style?
Ooh, learning styles. I kind of like learning styles because I think learning styles allow us to see what is it that engages us, right? What is it that helps us to remember things or help things to stick? Um, if you're a person who feels like your hands have to touch something all the time, you learn best through feeling, right? And so sometimes it's a fidget, sometimes it's just putty. Sometimes it's just like having a pen in your hand and clicking it that helps you to remember certain things. And then there's people who learn best by just doing, or those kinesthetic learners. um, you can tell me all day long, you can show me 1,000 times, but unless I do it, I'm not gonna remember it. So there are those type of learners too. And then those who are auditory, there are people who can listen to someone say it one time and they got it like this. Everybody learns differently. And I think sometimes people can intermix their learning styles. What works for you today may not work for you tomorrow. So I think it's good to just embrace all the learning styles, try them all to see what works versus what doesn't work. I mean, in high school, I could sit and listen to my teacher talk all day. In college, not so much. I don't need you to read to me what I can read for myself. So, I mean, everybody learns differently in different moments in life. So, just because you may be kinesthetic today, you may not be kinesthetic tomorrow. So, I think just being able to be open and embrace all the styles could be beneficial.
Now, obviously, I don't know what the word kinesthetic means. So I just want to let everyone know I'm here to learn today. As you can tell, I'm a connoisseur of words. I did not know that when I was younger, however. I'm like, if you play spades, so some old folks watching, or if you got some youngsters in here whose granny, you seen your granny and your uncles and them play spades, first, show me. You got to show me. You know what I'm saying? I'm the learner that's like, show me. But I think for like young people to try to gauge that, how they're, I don't want to say self-taught, but how they work, how they how they absorb information, right? Because a lot of, well, all young people can absorb information. It's going back to recollect that information. Like, how long did it last? What tools did you use to make sure it lasts in the long-term memory bank, right? But you don't know that if you're a young person and you don't even know that type of learning exists, right? So I think what I would say, young people, if you don't know what kind of learner you are, I would say, you know, ask your parents or your grandfolks or your teachers for some feedback and say, when you guys tell me to do something, like, when do I do better when you verbally tell me, when you show me, when you write it down? You know, young people, I mean, like I said, I didn't know what was my best strategy of learning. So I think it's important to include your parents, make it a family thing. Like, how do I learn these things? One trick I will say to you young people. And I didn't learn this, man, probably till junior college. I was 20 something years old. One of the professors told me, read, write, recite. Read, write, recite. It's a guaranteed scientific tested that it will last longer in your long-term memory bank. So if you know you here, well, here let's do this the right way. You can't read, write, recite the night before the test. That's it's not gonna work that way. You know, it has to be a level of consistency. So you know you're reading consistency, you're writing it down consistently, and you're writing it and you're reading it and you're saying it. Reciting it means saying it. You know, so just take those little tips if it helps you. And regardless of what way you learn, those things will help. The read, write, recite. I guarantee it helped me by far. I couldn't. I struggled in school because I could get the message, but I couldn't go back and get it out where I remember you talking about it, but I don't know how to do it now. So definitely read, write, recite.
I absolutely agree. Going back to what Abby said, it's honestly a mix of everything, you know what I mean? Because what might work for you one day might not work another, or even between subjects, your study method can vary. Like, let's take me for example. In reading, I can just sit and I can read and I'm good. But if it comes to science, I have to draw pictures for it to really settle in my brain. And for math, I have to like don't even ask me about math. I don't even know what I do for that one. I try my best. That's all I can do. But basically you just kind of have to try a little bit of everything, you know? Ask your friends like, "Hey, what works for you?" And sometimes they have these little hacks that maybe you wouldn't have thought of. If you're not sure what kind of learner you are and you want to find out and see if those kinds of applications apply for you, maybe you could take I'm sure there has to be 100 different online quizzes to be like, "Oh, what kind of whatever are you?" And you just kind of answer all these questions and it tells you, and then you can find those recommended study habits based off of your type, you know? There's a lot of different life hacks to go about it, but definitely reciting things is super important. Um, in high
I
school,
love I love what both of you just mentioned because I want to add two more things in there because listening to read, write, recite, right? And I love that because it is very true. When you read something and you write it, it clicks when you're writing it out. And when you're saying it out loud, it's kind of like saying it out loud is your reminder. Like you're reminding yourself of what you read. You're reminding yourself of what you just wrote. It's that reminder. So that's three ways for you to learn something. But also know if you feel like you are a social learner or a solitary learner, because some people learn best in groups of people, while some people learn better on their own. So know where you have to have the noise and where you have to cut the noise in order to be able to read, write, and recite. Because read, writing, and reciting may be good, like Maya said, it may be good when you're doing science or reading, but read, write, and recite with a group may work better when you're trying to figure out that math. So it is good to understand where you are. And I'll find some places where students can go to kind of figure out what style learner they are.
See, and I think it's important to touch on what Maya said, because again, this is why I love being around young people. Because again, my answer came from my 50-year-old self. I totally neglected the fact that young students, you got 7 classes, 7 different subjects a day. Like that didn't even register in me because I'm past that. Like I learned one thing at one time, you know. So I can clearly see the struggle when you only got 45 minutes in a classroom with 30 kids in there. Uh, you know, how that message is being presented to you in itself could be the challenge, right? Again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I can see where if you're trying to learn your way of learning, you're going to have to be proactive on it, because like I said earlier, you want to maybe get some help from your parents or your teachers or whoever. But like how man, that since you said that, Maya, that really got my brain going, because I'm like, man, you get 45 minutes in a class, that energy is just given to you. Boom, boom, boom. Write this down, say that, okay, bell rings, go to the next class. Now you ain't even got enough time to let that absorb in and sink in until you taking on something else. So you're really going to have to be intentional with your note taking. I even like what Maya said about picture, like drawing pictures reminders, right? Like triggered, like alerts. I think those would be very helpful. And so I would say this as well, because now I get myself to going. Like, don't get in class and let teachers uh, um, dismay you from like doodling. If doodling is a way of you jogging mental notes, then by all means do it. I mean, don't get lost in it. But if that's the way it better helps you note take, then by all means, I would say write down stuff, make pictures, make goofy faces, maybe tie something together, Um, yeah, that's awesome. And that's the thing, like with me, like, I get so one track that I totally forgot. Like, we got young folks with 7 classes. You know what I'm saying? So I could definitely see where that's a challenge. So just be intentional with your note-taking process.
One of my old teachers, he ended up going to law school, and I don't know, he just told us a bunch of his study hacks because his class was super intense. I think it was like history or something. I don't even remember. But he told us that what he used to do is that he would jot down all the notes to get all the information, whether it was the lecture or the textbook or whatever he was reading. He would jot it down, get the key points, summarize everything as much as he could. He would write it down slowly, kind of very mindfully, making sure he's reading every single word, every single letter, and then he would type it out and like revise that. I think obviously that would be more for dense materials or like I guess before exams, when you really need kind of a cumulative study point. But for little quizzes, little sections of whatever courses you're taking, I think just constant refreshers are super important to maintain that knowledge because, like you said, we're cramming it all in our head. Like, we don't really have the time. So, we have to make sure that we are doing it step by step and that we're building on the knowledge instead of just cramming it all, jotting it down for the test, and then kind of throwing it away and then moving on to the next thing. We want to make sure it sticks because then it pays off later, you know?
And I think that goes if we're talking about exams. Usually you're given a notice of when this exam is coming. So you have time. And I think as young people, this is just one of those things about time management. Regardless of what kind of learner you are, which is important because you need to know how to learn properly, you still have to be mindful of your time. So like, because I know for me, and I'm sure this wasn't just me, but you get into 7th grade, or it didn't even matter what grade, and they say, "Oh yeah, you got an essay due in a month." What, a month? Man, you might as well tell me a year, right? And then the week before, the teacher's like, "Oh yeah, hey, I hope you guys got your rough draft done because next Monday it's due." What? Next Monday? Man, you ain't even got no book. You ain't, you know what I'm saying? So time management uh really is going to play a huge role regardless of what style you are.
I'm a visual learner. I if you say something to me to my face, I can't understand you. I don't know what to do. I had to watch videos. I'm not reading nothing like that. I'm a visual learner. Since
That's
high,
totally cool.
yeah.
That's totally cool. Right. And so I'll say this to that point because Sis had talked about it earlier. No, I think it was Maya who talked about the college person, the college teacher. So young people, like when you start talking about finding your learning style, right? And I think Ab said it earlier, you're going to change probably as you get older. Some things you're probably going to learn differently or inhale differently. The crazy thing about it is sometimes your teachers are teaching you a skill on learning and you don't even know. Like it's like some teachers bring their own how they learned into the classroom and then expect you to pick up on it. So again, going from class to class to class, different teachers giving you different ways of learning, like you should be mindful of that. Like you should literally starting tomorrow when you get to school, be like, how's this teacher teaching? And how do they expect me to recall all of this information? Right? Because again, as you grow, and you change, I mean, you can get to a lecture hall in college, and it's 400 people in there. That professor is not passing out hand. That's a lot of paperwork to pass out. They ain't putting it on the board. They're gonna talk probably for 45 minutes. So you're gonna have to figure out some things on how do you manipulate what you're learning now and take it with you as you move on. If higher level education is part of the process.
Yeah, I agree with you. So my next question is, how does teaching others help you remember the things better?
I think that ties perfectly into what Abigail was saying earlier, like reciting, once you hear yourself say it, it sticks. I found that when you teach somebody else the material that you're studying, um, you understand it a little bit better because you have to make sure that you're explaining it properly. So you kind of explore all the different dimensions of whatever the topic is. You answer questions that your friend has, and talking about it out loud, you hear yourself say it and it sticks, you know? So when it comes test day, you're writing it down, you're like, oh, I remember I was telling her about this and we talked about it for a second and ba 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 ba. It's super useful. You know, one of those things that you don't expect, or one of those things that you don't really think would really pay off, but it does. Trust me. I used to make my friends sit there and be like, okay, listen, I know you know about this, but I'm gonna explain it to you anyways, because it helps me. So just like sit there and be quiet and listen. And she'd be like, okay. And then I would do the same thing for her. And it would work really well.
For me to answer that, I would just start with this. Like, great leaders are great listeners first, right? So I have always been a proponent and pushed for students to have a day to lead the class or a subject or whatever the case is. Because the great thing about young people is the authenticness to say what's on your mind. And if you get up in front of that class and there's 30 kids in there and you goof up one time, somebody in that class is going to make fun of you. And you are never going to forget that lesson. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to stick to you. It's weird how the human mind works, you know. And so I think, again, that's constructive criticism. You can look at it like we're goofing on the kid, but it's constructive criticism because now that person is like, okay, I'm responsible for this now because I done been made a fool in front of 35 people. I'm never forgetting that ever again. You know what I'm saying? And then once you become humbled, you've come by that. Now you go sit down and hopefully you take that skill and be like, okay, I'm about to listen because the next people that come up behind me and give a presentation, I'm gonna make sure they on point because I ain't gonna be the only one. So it's a crazy way how it works. You know what I'm saying? When you become the teacher, right? And other people have to listen to you. You know, I've always said that it makes you a good listener, but it prepares you as well. It prepares you for the lesson at hand. It prepares you now, like, oh, okay. And I guess we can go all the way back to some others of like who you are as a person, right? Because then this is the great thing about career development. I see how they tie together. Like, you put a kid up there and like, all right, man, this is your subject. You got 15 minutes. Kid ain't never been up there. He does great, or she does great. Next thing you know, I'm gonna be a professor now. I like being in charge. I like teaching people. I like that, right? Um, Same things happen, and you bomb and you fail, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to be a teacher, but maybe I could be a lawyer, or something like because I don't want to be on that side no more. I want to be on this side. So again, I think it's super helpful when you become the teacher and you have to be up there giving a presentation.
I really like that point of view because you know what? I absolutely agree with that. You know, with my students, like I'm the assistant, so they're not my students, but my students.
They're
Um,
your students.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thank you, thank you. So my students, they're small, and I have this one kid who's a great reader, right? But he doesn't really like reading for himself. He gets bored. He doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to do that. So I told him, I was like, "Hey, sweetie, why don't you read for the class? You do so well. Like they would love to hear you." And he got motivated in having that audience, and he did an amazing job. And we knew that he had it in him. You know, he always reads well on his own, but sometimes he needs that little extra push. That can apply to us too. You know, having that audience to explain it helps us understand it better, but also the way that we present it makes us, it kind of reinforces it in our brain.
Mhm.
Oh, it was so adorable too. He was reading to the whole class. I was like, you got it. I'm gonna go sleep.
And and
You
and,
know?
and see that's the awesome thing because you're saying young people. So I'm assuming like we're preschool, kindergarten, first grade, somewhere around there, right? I think by far our education system should start that process, what you're doing at that age. Because now, again, like you said, a lot of people don't want to get up in front of the class. But why make them wait until they're sixth grade to figure out that they don't like being in front of the class? You know, at least if you start in the first grade, then you're always going to get the shy kid. Totally fine. You know, that's when the teacher goes up and helps. Or maybe you send a buddy up, right? Now they can co-teach. I mean, there's just so many ways for young people to learn by teaching, you know, and I think the earlier we introduce it, one, you become a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more self-esteem. Then you're also learning how to learn because you understand what it takes to listen. I have said this before. You put the most, I don't want to say rowdy, you put the most rambunctious kid up in front of that class and have him teach for 10 minutes, he's going to get so mad if kids ain't listening. And that's when the teacher's time to educate and be like, look, this is how I feel when you're over there doing that. Now, I'm not trying to put you on blast, but now can you understand why it's so challenging when you're talking or, you know, you're causing something going on in the background. So I think it does so many things to have young people being a teacher. It just opens up so many possibilities.
You're so right. That changed your perspective. I was like, yeah, how does it feel? How does it feel? Funny enough, he is my most rambunctious kid, and he's also the smartest. It's
It,
amazing
it,
how this works.
no, that's not a myth. That's normal.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
because you know why we're rambunctious. Now I'm calling myself the smartest kid in the class. But you know why we're rambunctious? It's because
We're
we're
all smart in
bored.
our own way.
We're bored. You know what I'm saying? When you have a kid that can't sit still like myself, I was smart, but I couldn't sit still because like this is boring. Like challenge me, give me something to do, put me up in front of the class. You know, so I think it's always those kids that have a lot to say, but just aren't given the energy to say what's right. Because I'll tell you what, even with that, like say you don't want to read. You're a rambunctious kid, you don't want to read. Okay, get up there at the chalkboard. I'm gonna give you this chalk. Put something on that board. Creativity, no telling what that kid's gonna put on that board. You know, again, we open up so many wonderful possibilities when we put students as the leaders. Again, like I said, you know, the great listeners or great leaders are great listeners first, but they have to learn how to listen. And sitting there and listening to the same person say the same thing over and over and over is going in one ear and out the other because now it comes like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. You know, change up the energy and let them learn how to listen because that's what's important. Before we can get to read, write, recite, you got to listen.
I think something that a big challenge when it comes to studying, especially for exams and there's a lot of pressure, is that the material itself isn't stimulating. You know, that's why the rambunctious kid who can't sit still, you give him an active task and it's easier for him to kind of get it done, for him to explain, for him to understand. That's why the different methods of learning are so important in figuring out what stimulates our mind and keeps us engaged with what we're working with. If that means you have a little fidget spinner, okay, fine. If that means you're drawing the picture, if you have to doodle on the side, if you have to take more breaks, if you have to do this, do that, whatever works for you to make sure that the content keeps you focused, you know? The conventional method of studying, like sitting forever, just like staring at a screen, like that's not gonna work because it's not, it's boring, if I'm being honest. But if you make it
But
interesting
but
for
depend but
yourself,
depending on the person though, right?
true,
Absolutely.
okay, I won't speak for
So
Absolutely.
everybody.
so it's like there are people who they'll chew gum and can remember everything they read while they were chewing gum. But when they don't have that gum, they're lost.
And I like what Maya said about the stimulation part, especially when you're studying for an exam, because exams can be so mundane and tedious and boring and repetitious, and you almost become a victim of your own curiosity to learn. Like, I just read this, I know it, you know. So I think it's really a great opportunity for students to figure out one how you learn, but then like add something to it. You know, we live in a phenomenal age right now where young people, you are almost the captain of your learning vessel, right? And you can make it as stimulating as possible. Do you want it to be mundane? You'll chew some gum, write notes? Or do you want to make it interactive where, you're writing stuff, balling it up, you know what I'm saying, making it disappear, putting it on the screen, taking a selfie of it, giving it its own name, giving it its own anime, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a time right now when young people can really be creative with how they retain the information, because that's the thing we're talking about. When you prepare for a test, we're talking about how do you retain information. And if it's boring, it's going to be very difficult. So it has to be a way that the individual can take pride and become your own chef. Spice
Yeah, I
that
think
thing up, man.
this is where some of those tools from last week also come in, because we talked about like Kahoot, students who need like gamification type of things for them to remember all the things that they've learned or things that they're studying. So whether it's Kahoot, what's the other gaming platform?
We talked about Quizlet. I don't know if that's a game, but it kind of
Quizlet.
could be fun.
But it is kind of, yeah. So like Quizlet, or even if you took the time to like turn some of the things you study into a game of Jeopardy. I mean, there are so many different ways that you can turn your studying into gamey type things to help you to be, oh, what we got in the count, Blooket. Yes, that one too, Blooket. For you guys to be able to stay intrigued and stay engaged in that learning process. I want to touch on one thing that Smitty said, because Smitty brought up something that was phenomenal, right? We're talking about all these ways of you guys being able to prepare for those exams. And you're absolutely right, Smitty, when you said this all goes back to career, right? So as you guys are learning how to work exams, how to study, how to prepare yourself for what's to come, think of all these soft skills you just learned in the process, right? So now here's your public speaking for that rambunctious kid. You can now say that they have public speaking skills, probably have better negotiation skills than most, because they're going to negotiate to get up in front of that classroom. They have persuasive skills, because if you don't let me go up here, miss, I'm going to fail my class and I need to be able to teach somebody else. They're going to persuade you. Active listening, the effective communication, because now we're allowing students to work together in order to build that social piece, right? That social skill of studying. That's your teamwork. And if you have to be able to stand in front of people to put yourself out there, guess what? Somebody got to learn empathy because you're going to mess up, right? So there are so many different things that our students are learning and building just by studying for exams that they probably never even look at to know that it could go on their resume, because it's how they learn to study.
That's one of the things. And if you guys don't know me and what I do, I have a nonprofit here in California. One of my things is making sure that the young people I come in contact with have a sustainable toolbox of resources that they can understand how to go back and get that information, that retaining element, that component that we're talking about. Like, how do I study for this? Then again, when we're talking about exams, how do I study? Sometimes it's a matter of just being mindful and taking a deep breath, right? Because even the greatest individual who knows what their learning habits are, or their study habits are, or even their exam taking habits are, calm mind goes a long way. So when I'm talking to young people and we're talking about whether it's a pop quiz, whether it's homework, whether it's final exams, it's essays due, or whatever, I always start with just be calm. Just be calm, and here's the thing. Know what you know. Like know that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because only a few people are going to score a perfect 100 on every single test their entire life. Okay? Kudos to them. Outstanding. You like it, I love it. I'm with it. But for the majority of us, like myself, we're probably going to be in 80 to 90%. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to do any work at 80 to 90, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as human beings, as a society, most of the time our work is going to be in 80, 90%, right? That's saying this. That means off top, 75%. You know that. You know that, right? So when you go in there and start taking those tests, don't be stressed. Calm down. You already been through this. You did the studying. You knew what your studying habits was. You know what I'm saying? And then you breathe through it and kill that 75% off top, kill that 75%, and then you circle back and mess with that other, 15, 25% or whatever it is. But yeah, and I didn't mean to get off subject there, but I think it just all goes kind of hand in hand when we start talking about preparing for exams. So yes, student teachers, rock. I had my grandson, I had the 4-year-old reading to the 6-month-old on Friday. He was reading That Fat Caterpillar or The Hungry Caterpillar. The Hungry Caterpillar.
That's so cute. I'm sure he had a blast too.
Well, the thing is, this is why I love young people and why, I missed my calling. I should have been a first grade teacher or a preschool teacher. I should have been, but I'm not. But so when I started reading to him, now listen to me, young people, because this could help you. I started reading to him when he was 1, 2, 3. And then I say, okay, now you read to me. Now I know he can't read, but if he can hear me and he can follow along with the pages and flip the pages and see what's going on, then he can make up in his mind and kind of retain what I said. And so now there's 6 pages in The Hungry Caterpillar. And he knows by looking at them oh, okay, people have said this happened on this page. Let me put it in my words. And that's what he does with every single page. He puts what he sees in his own words. Now, hopefully, young people, he's going to get to the point where he says, okay, this is how I retain information, or maybe I retain information by me being a teacher saying it to someone else. So again, it's very important. I keep going back to that, but the student teacher just opens up so many possibilities to learning styles.
It's really cool that there's so many different ways to kind of figure this stuff out for ourselves. It's a
It
lot
is.
of trial and error, a lot of trial and error, but don't let that discourage you. Once you start, you get it figured out, you keep building on it, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. I think that just about wraps up our time.
Let her do one more.
Okay, I got you.
So, what are the most common mistakes teen makes when studying?
Keeping that phone around. Gotta say it. I'm so sorry, you guys, but it is such a big distractor. I know we already talked about this last week, but I have to bring it up again. You put it on Do Not Disturb and you put it away. Because if your homegirl texts you and you look at it, it's gonna put you so off your rhythm. You really need to kind of take out those distractions as much as you can. And the biggest one are those TikToks, those reels. Because you know what? You open one, you swipe, and then you're there for 2 hours and you don't even know what happened. I would be a liar if I say it doesn't happen to me because it's true, but that's why I gotta throw my phone across the room. Put it away. I promise it'll help. I promise.
I'm cracking up because mine was I'm not gonna let that one sit out. It's the phone, the phone.
That's what it is. So I think some of the biggest challenges also are ourself, the individual. Not every student or every young person has a support system that encourages them to learn, right? I want to be careful what I say because I don't want to make this sound like the broad picture, but there's a lot of energy that makes school or learning seem boring or it's not fun. I think adults, our education system, and I'm not going to get on a platform, and I'm just saying we have to make it so learning is fun. We want to make just like a student wants to go home after school and get on their skateboard or go to Girl Scouts or whatever. That's the same kind of energy we need young people to have when it comes to learning. Right now, that's not on the young person, that's on the school. I understand that. But if we don't have that, and there's this cloud over society that school is boring and it's not fun, then I think we already set our children up to self-sabotage. This is boring. I'm not going to do good on this test. I don't even like chemistry. I'm not even like biology. You know, I want to be a surfboard contestant or a coder when I grow up and be a gamer. Why do I have to even learn history about William Shakespeare? And we already doom ourselves. We already sabotage our 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 testing skills, our examination process, our learning habits. All of these things go out the window. So I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to test taking is just our mindset as a young person. Like, can I do this? Can I do this? Yes, I can. I can do this. And if I can, I'm going to try. Right. And I think that's one of the things that I've been pushing with my grandson is like, I want you to try. I don't care what the result is. I don't care if you get it right. I don't care if you fall. I just need you to try because that's where the energy is. Like, the other day he was on his bike. His pops had him in the street, and he didn't want to go off the ramp. And my son was like, "Man, just go ahead and try. You're gonna fall, but you're gonna be all right. You're gonna live." And I think we have to take and encourage our young people, like, don't take that test. You're gonna be fine. Okay, you may not get 100%, but you can get 75, you can get 80, you can get 90, and that doesn't mean you're a failure. So I think that's the biggest challenge when young people go into test taking quizzes, preparing for exams, is that it's already a negative connotation associated with it. I think we just have to reimagine that. And I think we have to encourage and introduce our young people to that. The notion of education is fun. It's part of your career building process and is an absolute fact. And believe me when I say this, it's an absolute fact that you have to have some level of education to get the bag. I'm just saying, not everybody's going to be a millionaire. Not everybody's going to be the son of or daughter of a wealthy individual. In order to get the bag, and I don't care if your bag is a minimum wage bag, you're going to need some level of education. So we have to understand and tie all that together to provide motivation. Like Amaya said earlier, that motivation part, that stimulation part, you know why you need to take this exam? Because it's going to get you a bag, possibly down the road somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So again, I think that's the biggest challenge, is just the notion, the energy that goes into test taking.
I think that challenges can be really intimidating once we, first approach it, especially if we're struggling in the subject or if studying it hasn't gone the way that we feel like it should be going. But reframing is a really good point to make. I didn't think of that, but I'm gonna start trying that for my step too, because it could be scary, but we can still get it done. And even if it doesn't go the way we want it to, we'll live, we'll be fine, and everything will be okay. Just gotta keep practicing, right?
Hey, listen, when you hear me, and these young people listen to me, when you hear me, you might be like, well, yeah, Smith told me not to get good grades. No, I didn't say that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can only do what you can do. My mother used to tell me this: you can't get blood from a turnip. That's what my mother used to tell me. You can't, I don't know what that means. She said, you can't get blood from a turnip. You can only do, young people, what you can do. And that's why I say, if you try, just try, you don't need to get straight A's. It would be awesome. But man, hey, hey, you know what? Just pass the test. That's it. Pass the test. Try your best to pass the test. That here to the whole point of reframing. Let's not try and ace the test. How about we try to pass the test? Whole different connotation with the energy we're going into this test with. You don't took all of that pressure off. You know what I'm saying? Now the pressure is, oh, I'm just gonna try. And then you relax, and then you breathe, and you already know 75% of it. And now you're feeling so good about yourself. You start, listen, they got this thing in sports. Look good, feel good, play good. Same thing in education. Man, you get in that thing, you done calm down. You're like, man, I'm about to try my best. I know 75%. You get in there, start feeling yourself, then you get on one, and you're like, man, hold on a second. I'm going to talk about that over here, and then Smith will talk about that over there, and it comes tied together. Man, now I got a 99. Man, I'm telling you, it's a whole process, y'all. It's a vibe. What y'all young for? It's a whole vibe. Look at it. That exam taking thing is a whole vibe. Please believe it.
Aw, that's such a good point to make. I love that comparison. And even if like taking the exam doesn't go the way that you want, now you know what works and what doesn't. And you can use that setback as motivation to put you further the next time. Lots of different things you can take from it, but never let it get discouraging. You can always do it. You just have to keep trying, keep pushing, and everything will be okay. Okay, I think that just about wraps up our time for today. Thank you guys. I always have so much fun with you. Thank you, Smitty. Thank you, Abby and Alani. Okay, so guys, listen. Tests they come and they go, but the skills we build during the exam season, like time management, focus, resilience, and self-belief, stay with us for life. Whether you're fine-tuning your study habits, finding calm in stressful moments, or simply learning how to show up for yourself, remember this. You are capable, you are growing, and you've got what it takes to succeed. Preparation isn't just about passing that test, it's about building the confidence that lasts far beyond the classroom. So, before we wrap up, don't forget to check out what's happening at Steps Foundation this month. We're excited to partner with First Nature Ranch to host Horse Sense and The Color of You, two amazing experiences designed to help teens explore identity, confidence, and art through the power of nature and horses. Spots are limited, so head to our website to register now. And this summer, we are launching EduTalk, Real Talk, Real Change, a powerful conversation series in July. We're bringing together educators, students, community members, and government officials to have honest, solution-focused discussions about what needs to change in our school system so everyone feels seen, heard, and supported. If you've got a voice and a vision, we want to hear from you. And finally, our last Youth Program Ambassador information session of the year is happening April 11th at 6 p.m. If you're in high school and want to make a real impact in your community and school, don't miss this chance to learn how you can empower, lead, and inspire. To learn more about events and programs, visit www.stepsfoundation.org or follow us on social media at Steps Foundation Incorporated. All right, guys, listen. Exams might test your knowledge, but they do not define your worth. Keep showing up, stay curious, and give yourself grace along the way. You're doing more than just preparing for a test, you're building the future that you want. Getting that bad, right? Thanks for joining us on this month's Talk Tuesday. Keep aiming high, supporting each other, and trusting the process. And as always, stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep leading the way. Catch you next time, guys. Bye.